right, guys. So as I mentioned in my last Deck in the Shelves post, I'm going to do a post about why I'm having a surgery. And this is very off topic and it is very personal. It deals with a lot of feminine issues. So if that makes you uncomfortable, don't listen to it. But I'm going in for a hysterectomy, and the road that has led me to this has been a long and trying one. And I thought I would talk about, because I know a lot of women have issues and they don't talk about it. It's really not encouraged, and it's really kind of, you know, hush hush at work and stuff. And I've been really open about it at my job and at work because I don't see any reason not to be open about it. And I think if people are having issues, they should be getting help for it, right? So I know getting a hysterectomy can be very controversial, but let me tell you my history, and I'm going to try to do this as short as I can. So I got my menstrual cycle relatively late. I was 15 or 16 when I got it. And right away, I was having pain and bleeding issues. My mother also had the same issues. And so she was very sympathetic about it and very proactive. And I got put on birth control at a fairly young age to control some of these issues. Okay, so that was 25 years ago. So let's fast forward. 15 years. You know, birth control causes issues. The whole time I was on it, I had issues with headaches and acne and all the stuff that you have issues with when you're on birth control. Fast forward 15 years, my husband and I decide that we want to have a kid. So I get off the birth control, okay, and I get pregnant very quickly. My pregnancy went okay. My actual delivery of my son did not go quite as well. He was okay. They had a lot of trouble with me. They could not stop my bleeding. I bled and I bled. My uterus would not contract properly. They almost had to give me a blood transfusion. And of course, I didn't know this at the time. I was concerned about my baby. And there were some issues because of that. Like, he had aspirated some fluid, and then he had trouble like breastfeeding and breathing and stuff for a few minutes after I had him. And then that kind of, you know, it got resolved. But this is another reason, like, I'm really for hospital births, not home births, because if I'd had a home birth, there's a very good chance that I would have maybe not have made it because of this issue. Okay, so I've had my son. As soon as I can, I get an IUD put in. Okay, I get the Mirena IUD put in. This actually worked fairly well for me. I didn't have a lot of side effects from it. It controlled my horrible bleeding and stuff very well. And the issue with it is my anatomy is a little different. So when you get an IUD put in, there's a wire that comes out that they use to extract it 7 years later. And that wire kept poking me. They couldn't find a good place to situate it. So they cut it really short, like so short that when they went to take it out 7 years later, they couldn't find it. They couldn't get it out. So I had to have a very painful minor surgical procedure to have that IUD removed. Okay, at this point, I'm done. I'm not getting another IUD. I don't ever want to go through that again. And over that 7 years, we had decided that no one was going to get sterilized or anything until my son was 3 or 4 years old, just to ensure that, you know, if we wanted to have another kid, we could. When my son hit 3, it was like either 3 or 4, my husband did get sterilized. So I didn't really need birth control anymore. When they took out that IUD, had all that issue, I opted not to get another one put in. I said, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm just going to try being on nothing, right? I've had headaches, I have had acne, I've had all these issues. I want to just be me, okay? And that was actually great for a while. Like, I've historically had very, very long periods. We're talking like 2 weeks out of a month, I will have my period. Even when I was on birth control, it wasn't heavy bleeding, but I did have very long periods. So when I got off the IUD, things went okay for a while. I love that I wasn't getting headaches. I felt like I had more energy. I felt more like myself. I really liked not being on birth control. Unfortunately, a couple years ago, I started having some of the issues I had when I was 16 years old. I was getting very, very heavy bleeding, very long periods, and a lot of pain. And I'm not talking like, oh, I have cramps. I'm talking like, oh, I kind of have cramps all month long. And then when I'm having my period, I have cramps so bad that I can't walk and I can't breathe and I end up curled in a ball. Okay, so very, very bad. Like a leave wouldn't help, things wouldn't help. It just was going very poorly for me. On top of it, I was tired. I was getting crabby. I'm spending half my life in pain, right? Severe pain. So I'm like, this isn't right. I decided to go to my OB/GYN and say, I just can't. And this is my lady. She's been my OB since I'm 16, and she helped me deliver my son. And this is the lady I've had forever. I said, I need help. I can't deal with this. I can't function anymore. Like, I just can't deal with it, right? So she says, well, let's put you on some progesterone-based birth control. That'll help regulate all this. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to try it, whatever. So I go on progesterone-based birth control. And I believe it was progesterone, because they tried a couple different things. When I got on that, I started having RO migraines that were bad enough that occasionally I lost the ability to speak. So the worst time I remember, we were actually sitting in a Perkins, and the lady came up to take our order, and I suddenly couldn't talk. And my husband started staring at me, and I'm like I can't talk. So my husband's like, we need a minute. And he's like, what's going on? And I can't talk, right? Which is freaky. And then like 5 minutes later, I was able to speak, and I got this horrible migraine and couldn't see out of one eye and all this stuff. So at this point, the doctor's very concerned because they were worried I had a stroke. I did not have a stroke. I was just having incredibly severe RO migraines. We had to stop it. I was on it for a few months. We had to stop. Okay. So I spent a few months on nothing, and I'm still having all these issues. And the doctor says, all right, well, why don't we try an estrogen-based one? Because, obviously you're very sensitive to progesterone. Let's try an estrogen-based one. So we did that. A week after starting the estrogen-based one, I started getting cyst acne. What do they call that? Cystic acne all over my face. Like I have cysts all over. And it is incredibly painful. And people are like, oh my God, what happened? Are you allergic to your makeup? Or like, what's going on? And I can't deal with this, right? Like you're asking me like, do I want to almost bleed to death and have all this pain? Or do I want to have my face be in just as much pain and people be like recoiling when I walk up to them, right? So we had to stop that. At this point, I was getting kind of fed up because I'm like, guys, this isn't working. I'm sick of this. I can't work like this. So I switched OB/GYNs, and it was a really hard thing for me to do because I really liked the one I had, but I needed something different. Okay, guys, my timer went off, so I'm having to split this into another video because when the timer went off, it shut down my recording for some reason on my phone. So I went to a new OB/GYN. It was a hard decision, but she was a little bit younger, a little bit more proactive. And she sat me down and said, you haven't actually had any hormonal testing. Nobody's done an ultrasound to see what's going on, and we need to figure out what is happening. So I went in and had an ultrasound. They found I had a number of polyps and masses in my uterus that was causing a lot of pain. So she recommended getting a DNC done. And last January, so a little over a year ago, I had that procedure done. After I had that procedure done, things were fantastic for 2 or 3 months. So I was super excited. I was like, this fixed everything. I feel so much better. And, everything's great. And I'm only bleeding for a couple days, and I don't feel like I'm dying. And it's wonderful. Unfortunately, things started to get really bad again. And by the time, like a lot of people are like, what do you mean by a lot of bleeding? A lot of bleeding means like I was filling up a tampon and a Supermax pad in about 30 minutes to an hour. And I work full time with a whole bunch of engineers, a whole bunch of guys. And like, I can't necessarily leave every 30 minutes to an hour to go and deal with this, right? And the thing that just added was like the cherry on the top of the sundae was we went to our state fair one day, and we were there for a couple hours, and in the time it took us to leave the park, take the shuttle bus, and get back to our car, I bled through everything. And I actually got out of the car and was sitting in a puddle of blood. And my son freaked out. And I was like, oh my God, don't worry, I'm not dying. Even though part of me is thinking, am I dying? But we did the DNC, things got worse. Okay. But the good thing is I went back and I said, things are getting bad again. And she goes, okay, well, let's do a more invasive ultrasound. We'll look at stuff again. We'll try to see if you're having trouble with endometriosis as well, or adenomyosis. And lo and behold, they did a whole bunch of blood work, whole bunch of stuff. And this was just, like a month ago. I had more masses and polyps in my uterus. They had come back, and I had adenomyosis. I think that's how you say it, adenomyosis, which is not endometriosis. Adenomyosis is actually the uterine cells growing into the muscle wall. It's slightly different, and I was reading about the two, and I don't fully understand it, but it's slightly different. They can usually help adenomyosis with hormonal therapy, which did not work for me, or a hysterectomy. So, and then all the blood work showed I've been chronically anemic, even though I've tried iron supplements and they give me migraines. So that wasn't working out either. Anyways, all of this leads us to the fact that I need to have a hysterectomy. I don't want to have more kids, so it's not a big deal for me. I know my mom kind of was like, whoa, when I told her, but it's not maybe as bad for long-term effects as it has been in the past, because they don't have to take your ovaries out. So you can still get the hormonal balance from the ovaries and have your uterus and fallopian tubes removed. So I'm having that procedure done next week. They are recommending a 6-week recovery period for that. I've talked to a number of women who've had hysterectomies, and it sounds like that recovery period can range from 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on how things go. That uncertainty scares me a little bit. The other thing that scares me a little bit is they told me I could be out of the hospital the afternoon off the surgery, or I could be in the hospital for 3 days. So there's a lot of variability in how this procedure can go. And I also have to fast for 24 hours before the procedure, which I'm not keen on, because that's a long time to not eat. And I think I'm going to be a hot mess by the time I get in for surgery. But all that being said, I thought I would kind of give the whole background as to why I'm having this hysterectomy, why I'm having the surgery, and everything I went through over the last 25 years dealing with these issues. And I'm hoping that this solves my problem. So what my plan is right now, and we'll see if I follow through on this, is I gave you guys kind of an intro as to what this is getting done, or why this is getting done. I would like to go ahead and continue updating you guys as to how the surgery goes, my recovery, how I feel afterwards, if it's worth it. I've heard mixed things from women I've talked to. Some people say it's the best thing they did in their lives. Some people say that they kind of feel like they're missing part of their body, and spiritually they don't feel whole anymore. Honestly, I'm not like a super religious spiritual person, so I'm ready to get rid of my uterus. I'm done with it. Like, I'm not going to miss this thing. It's caused me so much trouble over my life that I'm like, goodbye. So we'll see how it goes. And I hope you guys didn't think this was too personal. And if you did, I hope you stopped listening. Yeah. So, keep your fingers crossed for me. I'm both excited and terrified and nervous and all the things above, because I had my gallbladder removed, and that was kind of a major surgery, but you just don't know. And you're reading about the stuff that can go wrong, and you're like, oh my God. But I think it will go well. I'm a very healthy person. I'm in good shape, and I think it'll go okay. I'm just worried about that long recovery time, and I'm worried about not being at work for 6 weeks, but we will see how that all goes. And I'm worried about, is my family going to be okay, and what happens if something catastrophic happens and all that, but we'll find out. So that's the story. I hope you guys found it informative, or maybe you're like, oh my God, too much information, but whatever. I will talk to you guys in a couple weeks probably, because I will be recovering, and hopefully within a week after my surgery, I'll feel good enough to start doing some posting again. If not, it may be a few weeks until you hear from me. Until then, read some great books. have fun, enjoy spring. Our snow is melting in Minnesota. I can see grass kind of in a couple places. We still have like a foot of snow on the rest of the yard, but there were 3 squirrels sitting in a tiny portion of our yard that is showing grass. So spring is here. All right. You guys have a great week. Read some great books, and I will talk to you later. Bye.